Hey boyos, this is a response video to the Ask Me Anything threads posted on the misc. There's a couple of them, and I'm compiling both of them. I noted that they are both now closed. So we'll start off with Jughead96. He's got some Get Her Done themed questions in memory of the great Get Her Done. Do you like the smell of your own farts? Sometimes mine smell alright. I do actually. They have an intoxicating smell, like a really sweet, sickly smell. And I just really like the smell of my own farts for some reason. Whereas other people's, I can't stand. I don't know if that's normal. I think it's normal. Have you gotten drunk off malt beer before? Nope. I don't think I've ever gotten drunk off beer. Um, I can maybe count on two hands the number of times I've actually drank beer, and I typically don't drink a lot of beer when I do drink. That's a very rare thing. How soon after you wake up do you have your first smoke? It is the first thing I do when I get up. I get up, I don't get dressed because I'm already dressed. I don't bother taking my clothes off to get in bed. I don't sleep with a sheet or a pillowcase. I just sleep with all my clothes on, wear the same clothes for a week or two, sometimes longer. Sometimes I wear the same pants for a month. Um, so, yeah, within 3 minutes of getting out of my bed, I will be outside having two cigarettes. After I have the two cigarettes, I then go in, have my medication, make a coffee, go upstairs, check emails in the misc, and then I go back out for a smoke or two, usually two, and finish my coffee outside. And moving on, Canada questions. What is the best and worst province in Canada? In Canada, um, the best province or provinces I would say would be Ontario and Alberta. Now, some of the other ones like British Columbia is, or I think it's British Columbia. BC, yeah, BC isn't bad, but everybody talks about Alberta and Ontario. Alberta is the place people from here will go when they actually want to make money and actually decide money is the thing they want in life. They go to Alberta. And Ontario is a win because it's the closest thing you can get to being in the US without being in the US, right? And people often go to Ontario when they just want, a better life, like more populated areas and stuff like that. And why does no one ever talk about Prince Edward Island? I'm getting ahead of myself. The worst provinces are probably the Atlantic provinces. That would be Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. New Brunswick, debatedly, is worse than Nova Scotia. But Nova Scotia, I've said this before, is definitely in the top two or top three of the worst provinces in Canada. And I've always lived in Nova Scotia. And why does no one ever talk about Prince Edward Island? Prince Edward Island is technically part of Nova Scotia. It is an extremely poor area. Nobody talks about it because, it's probably a place people go to retire because I never hear anything about Prince Edward Island, about money or anything like that. But based on certain movies like Anne of Green Gables, it had a lot of nice country scenery. Um, but yeah, nobody really talks about Prince Edward Island. Nobody cares about Prince Edward Island. It's probably a place people go to retire. Do people ever visit Nunavut? I'm not sure. I haven't. I've never heard of anybody visiting Nunavut. Um, but it's one of those places people don't really go. I mean, I have heard stories of people that have went to Nunavut and have worked in isolation, making shit tons of money because nobody wants to live there. So, and moving on, Orson Welles asks, "How many more AMAs you gonna ask?" Seems to be losing steam. I will continue asking them as long as I keep getting questions, right? It's just something I like to do just to give me practice talking on camera and making videos of myself. That's it. Moving on. Big League Bra. An idiot. I'll give him a neg right now. I disapprove. Why do you refuse to get a job? Well, Boyle, I'll tell you something. I've went over this multiple times, and I think you're just a pain in the ass. So, moving on. Jughead96 again asks. He doesn't ask anything. He's just replying to something. Moving on. A. Willis says, "What is your current weight?" I'm not sure. I have lost a very small amount of weight in the past couple of months since I've been keeping an eye on my diet and walking. I haven't walked in a few weeks. I'm not worried about it. I will get back into it again eventually. I'm not sure what my weight is. It's somewhere in the range of 230 to 240. Quite confidently, I can say that. And moving on, Pappy Chulo says, "Now that there is an actual scale in your house, when are you going to step on it and post weights? You are still trying to lose weight, right?" Yes, I am still trying to lose weight, just not very hard. When am I going to step on it? Probably never. I don't want to have to fuck with it because the digital scale, I don't know how to use it, and I'm not worried about it. I try to have as little contact with the other adults in my household as much as possible, just because try to talk to them and they'll say a bunch of nonsense and bullshit, and I just get the vibe they don't want to talk to me. So, yeah, I won't be weighing myself on that scale anytime soon. Do you feel bad for your sister and her kids when they have to smell you? Do you feel any guilt for not showering frequently around them? Not really. I've become used to the lifestyle of just not showering very often, right? I often hear people complain about certain other people that come here that often stink as well. You know, uh, a lot of people stink around here. It's Nova Scotia, right? It's full of a lot of dirty people. It's just the way it is. And do I feel bad for my sister and her kids? Not really. If they don't want to be dirty, they can shower. If I want to be dirty, I don't have to shower. I have nobody to impress, right? My room, the issue with my room being a mess is probably more of an issue, right? Because there are some strange smells that come from my room, and I do have a little bit of rotten food like apple cores sitting in cups and stuff like that, and pizza crust. Um, I'm not worried about it. What are you going to do with your 10K windfall? Are you going to pay off your debts or invest it? You could always have your sister hold the money and declare bankruptcy to clear your debts, but I wouldn't do that over 3K, maybe 20 to 30K if they would lend you that much. Have you considered doing that, pulling out as big of a loan as you would get approved for, then filing bankruptcy? Does that in fact impact your welfare payments at all? Yes. Any money that is not from the government, the welfare office will take from me. Any kind of tax return, they will not touch. So the money I got, that 10K, they will not touch that because that's money I'm entitled to for living with a disability. I have already paid off my debts. It was like $2,200. I still have a lot of money left. I am also getting back some more money in the next couple weeks because of it, and also in a couple months I'll be getting a tidy sum of money because of it as well. Um, I'm not out to scam the system, like having my sister hold the money and then declare bankruptcy. I'm not looking to scam the system or try to trick anybody, because generally when people do that, it often comes back on them and bites them in the ass. So I'm trying to keep a clean slate and not do anything sketchy or weird with the government. So moving on. And Jughead96 asks again, what do you think the highlight of your life is so far? Your best moment, your happiest moment, etc. Um, when I was with my first girlfriend, I was pretty happy. It was kind of life changing, right? Because I was very blue pilled back then, thinking that I would meet the perfect person. We would have a great life together. We would get married, have children. So when I got my first girlfriend, it kind of changed my life completely, and I thought, this is it. My life is something special now, and yeah, probably having my first girlfriend was the highlight of my life. After that, having a girlfriend it just lost its novelty. It wasn't the same again, having a different girlfriend, right? And do you miss Zellers? Um, I remember in Greenwood, I don't know if it was Kmart or Zellers, but when they had the restaurant in there, it was a good restaurant, and I would often go there and eat. Well, not often, a few times. It was a good restaurant. I think it was the Kmart diner. Maybe they had it too when it was Zellers. I know they had one waitress working there, and she was there for a hell of a long time. And did you play Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh growing up? Never played either one. Never. I seen people play them, and I had no interest in playing it because Magic the Gathering is superior and always will be. Magic the Gathering is the best game ever made. It's a near perfect game. Um, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh do not even come close. They pale in comparison. When you think of your hometown or place you grew up, is it New Germany? I didn't grow up in New Germany. I grew up in the Middleton area, and I don't have many fond memories of growing up in the Middleton area because, small town, not much going on, lots of drugs, there's nothing to do, so people do drugs. People do drugs and sleep around. So, moving on. Pat's asks, have you ever tried incorporating nicotine patches or gum throughout the day to try to lessen the amount of cigs you smoke? Um, I've considered it, but I'll never do it. I'm about going all in on something rather than half-assing something. When the day comes that I decide to quit, I will quit, and that will be that. It won't be cutting down. It will be literally, I quit smoking. So, moving on, we got the second thread here. Not bad, not Brad asks a very weird question here that I probably won't be able to answer. Seems too sophisticated and needs an intelligent answer or something I could potentially research to get the answer I want, but I'm not going to do that. Given the latest Fed minutes, if you were to invest in hedge funds that had an allocation to insurance companies, would you invest in one that focus on A, life insurance, or B, property and casualty insurance, and why? What would your ideal asset and liability matching structure look like if you were one of these companies? I have no fucking clue, bro. I just know I'm a good salesman. Um, I'm quite intelligent, quite technical. I have good speaking skills. I'm good at making people do what I want. But as far as this question, I have no fucking clue. I would have to do some research to have my answer, and I don't want to do that. So sorry, bro. Moving on to LA Hipster 1, who asks, we need a weight loss update, son. It's been a while. I thought you looked leaner earlier, but perhaps that was just the lighting, as I think you said you had plateaued. Yeah, it's mostly the lighting, and also just short-term sodium bloat reduced, just because I haven't been eating a tremendous amount, and I've just been eyeballing how much I've been eating and trying to keep it low. Donnie is about to crash out. He has flown too close to the sun with his cheat meals. They are full, fat, heavy carb deliciousness that will spike his insulin, drive him insane with hunger serious, and within the coming weeks we will likely witness Donnie have a huge setback unless he cleans up his diet and lowers the intensity of his cheat meals. You have taken your time with your diet, really thought things through, best strategy, etc., which actually is a great way to go about it. What advice would you give Donnie not to mess up? Well, we'll get one thing straight. I'm not hardcore dieting. I'm not hardly dieting at all. It's mostly trying to stabilize my weight and stay roughly the same. Just because dieting is very difficult and I don't want to commit to something right now that I'm not going to be able to follow through on. It's mostly I just want to stabilize my weight, stay about the same. But the advice I would give Donnie is if you're really serious about losing weight, most people, probably 95% of people, have to completely eliminate all junk food from their diet and live a healthy lifestyle and follow a healthy diet if they really want to lose weight and stay in shape, right? It's like a smoker. If you want to quit smoking, you can't continuously smoke cigarettes on occasion. You have to cut them out entirely. So that's my advice to Donnie: is completely cut out the garbage. Because when he posts cheat meals, it is literally a cheat meal. It's a bunch of garbage food. It's not like a cheat meal of chicken and rice, like a double portion. It's actual garbage. So it's a food addiction. That's why people get fat. They get a food addiction. That's all it is. It's no different than being addicted to cigarettes or alcohol or drugs. So he's got to eliminate junk food, all fast food, junk food, and processed food from his diet if he really wants to be serious about losing weight. That's true for probably 95% of people. Bodybuilders will often say they eat for performance, not for taste. And they also will say they're not an emotional eater, so boredom has nothing to do with their dieting habits. So moving on. Iron Manlet is open to having sex with men if the vibes are good. I think this is called being hetero-flexible, and to be honest, I actually think it's a pretty interesting way of living life, and it makes it a lot easier to find a partner. What are your thoughts? Well, if you're gay, you're gay, right? I don't believe there's such a thing as hetero-flexible. You're either a faggot or you're not, right? I am not a faggot. I've asked myself the question before because in this time period in history, it is very cool to be a faggot. And I asked the question to myself, like, am I a faggot? Am I secretly attracted to men? And just learn to hide it my whole life. And I am not. I have no attraction to men. So, and I would not be ashamed to come out with it if I was, because, people think it's cool now to be that way. So, um, that's my thoughts. You're either gay or you're not. That's all it is. I also want to ask you about Brad. He has been on a hell of a bender since he returned to the city because he thinks he can't have friends without doing drugs. Could you expand your thoughts on male friendship for late 30s men? I know it's difficult, but how should one go about it getting solid friends at a later age? Um, Engage in activities in the community, Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering at your game store, Taekwondo classes, arm wrestling practice, boxing, wrestling, group activities and you're going on in your community. Not all of them have to cost money, but you probably have to have your license and a vehicle. But that's probably the best way of making friends, right? Um, I haven't really made many friends in recent years, practically none. The friends I have made outside of high school, they never remained friends with me. We always parted ways. Michelle said she would basically turn down Henry Cavill, Superman, if he showed interest in her. Is this Michelle just trolling, or do you believe she was sincere? Don't you think she would be on her back in 30 seconds flat if Henry came on to her in real life? Well, that's the thing, right? Women will do that. They'll say they don't want any man, that pretty much every man is unattractive. Women, the thing about women is um, they generally they have lower testosterone than men. So they don't have as high as a sex drive. You have to turn them on. When you turn them on, then they're a slut, right? But I'll be sitting around and being a man with testosterone, and I'll think, I have no interest in women. I'm just going to do my own thing. And when I get turned on, it's a completely different switch is flipped, right? And women basically is the same way, just more of an extreme way. You know, she just didn't happen to be turned on at that moment when she was talking about Henry Cavill. If she was excited or aroused, she'd be on her back for probably be anybody, right? That's just the way women are. You know, if you flip the switch and turn them on, they'll fucking do anything. So moving on. I watched your beta male versus alpha male video. It was interesting. Could you expand a bit more about the other archetypes, especially the lesser known like delta and gamma? Yeah, there are 5 primary male archetypes: alpha, in order of alpha, beta, delta, gamma, and omega. And I covered alpha and beta. Those are the 2 top ones. Um, we'll go on to delta. Delta is the bulk of the workforce. the working class people, the majority of people are deltas. Um, you may think, well, because that's the majority of people, it's boring and I don't want to be that way, which is somewhat true. But deltas are very good at their role. They're very familiar with their role in society and they're very good at performing it. For that reason, they make the best boss, they make the best parent. Um, because of that, because they're so good and familiar with their role. Um, deltas basically are boring because there are so many people are deltas, right? Um, and then we have gamma. Gammas are essentially the advisory type, the type who play an advisor role. They're very intelligent, kind of like an omega, except they're more intelligent. The intelligence is literally what defines them. They're known for their good ideas, good advice, and their intelligence, but they're practically useless on their own, right? Um, they don't have as much success as most of the other archetypes, obviously. They're usually very unintimidating, they're not physically strong. They look like a nerd, basically, the nerdy type, typically. They're really thin, unintimidating, unimposing, very intelligent. They have really good ideas. They give really good advice, but they're useless on their own. The thing about gamma males is they will often become jealous of the alpha male because they believe because of their great intelligence they would do a better job than the alpha male. That is one key thing about a gamma male. They sometimes do have success with women just because they're so intelligent, and often women will be attracted to them because they're very smart. And lastly, we have the omega male. And I want to note here that most people are a blend of all five male archetypes. Most people are not exclusively one male archetype, they're a blend of all five. But omega males are basically the outcast and loner. Um, they typically, if they have a friend group, it's typically a group of other omega males, and they often don't care about their place in the hierarchy, and they often have their own hierarchy within their friend group with one that they designate as the leader, um, which is still probably an omega male with some alpha male characteristics. Omega males typically don't have a lot of success with women, similar to the other archetypes except for alpha. Um, Now, omega males, they they don't care about gender specific roles in relationships, whereas alpha males do. Alpha males will believe that a woman's place is in the kitchen and a man's place is in the backyard splitting firewood with an axe, right? They're very big on gender based roles, whereas omega males are not. They're not big on gender based roles. They're very big on gender equality and sharing roles, right? Omega males are often the type who might be like a stay at home dad or something like that. Omega males often have some kind of really nerdy um, hobby, like collecting comic books or playing a collectible card game like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon. Just because you have a nerdy habit like that does not make you an Omega male. It's just something that is an Omega male characteristic, right? Like I said, most people are a blend of all the or all the archetypes. Most are not exclusively one. So hopefully that answers your question. You call yourself primarily a beta male, but with secondary alpha male characteristics. Do you find the alpha part of yourself hard to control sometimes? And do you ever get into situations where the alpha side takes over and basically bullies the beta inside you into submission? If so, how does that manifest in your day to day life? I attempt to be an alpha male somewhat. I accept that I'm primarily a beta male because beta males have a lot of admirable characteristics, but it's for their very characteristics that are admirable that women will despise them. And that's for being like reliable and honest and loyal and faithful, dependable, predictable, and women will despise them for that. But I embrace having those character traits because I see them as admirable. But the thing about beta males is they often strike out with women because they try to be a woman's friend. They try to be a nice, friendly guy to the women, and they often strike out. Instead of trying to sleep with the woman, they try to be her friend. Um, and in my younger days, it didn't matter if I was a beta male. I still had success with women because I was quite attractive, right? And I still believe it doesn't matter what your male archetype is primarily. Looks are the one of the most important things, right? Moving on. What are your summer plans? Are you into tanning at all? It's healthy if you do it in moderation. Um, if I ever get in shape again, I will start tanning again, definitely for sure. I mean, there's no point in some big fat guy having a good tan, right? It's not going to help me at all, right? Now, if I was ripped with a low body fat percentage, then yeah, I'd want to have a good tan just to make myself appear even better. Moving on. Jughead again asks, do you feel like the last few years of your 40s is your last chance at making it? Objectively speaking, 50 plus is getting old and single digits out from being an actual senior. Um, the thing about my 40s is I've gained a very clear perspective on life. Things aren't, life is no longer confusing or overwhelming. Um, I've learned to take things in stride and not, you know, make a big deal of things that are nothing. I have a very clear perspective. I just constantly make small goals for myself and meet them. You know, it scares me a little bit that I'm getting close to being a senior because I think, where did the time go, right? What did I accomplish? Nothing. And a lot of that was from spinning my wheels, being in the workforce, and not gaining anything from it, right? What is it about your mentality you reckon that holds you back from locking in? I believe you're talking about weight loss. Um, I don't want it badly enough. I have the means of attaining it. I know what to do. I just don't want it badly enough. And with my living situation makes it even more difficult, right? Um, if I was living on my own in my own apartment, I would be able to lock in a lot better. What pains do you have in the body? Now that I don't strength train, I often will have back pain. And it's funny because when you deadlift heavy, often it makes back pain go away. But it's mostly my back. It's not there all the time. If I engage in some kind of laborious work when I'm not used to it, I'll start having back problems for a few days. That's about it. When is the last time you did real cardio, like moderate activity, like cycling, jogging, or anything that is equivalent? Um, a very long time ago. I used to bike ride. All I've done recently for cardio is just walking. I never trained cardio, so my cardio is absolute shit. I likely will never become a cardio athlete, so I'm not going to worry about training cardio. And moving on. Marmalade asks, I have a phone call. It's just my mother. She can wait. If you could morph into any animal, what would it be? Um, Probably some type of bird. I think that would be pretty cool. Maybe like not a duck, because a duck can't sit in a tree. And sitting in a tree is important for a bird. I feel just for protection from predators. Um, some kind of bird, some kind of bird that's relatively small that generally sits in trees when it's not flying. Who is a gay musician that you admit you like, and what is a song by them which you like? I'm not too familiar with gay musicians, but probably like Freddie Mercury. He has a lot of good songs. Can you record your war cry? No, sorry. LA Hipster one says, also, John, I saw that Michelle has put you on ignore. What happened between you? Why are you on ignore? And are you not getting along with Michelle? She can be a handful, that's sure, for sure. What happened was I made a rude comment to her, implying that she would spread her ass cheeks apart for any guy if they were good looking and made themselves known to her, and she couldn't handle it. You know, I'm convinced, that it's because I'm ugly, right? Women don't like me, and it's because I'm ugly. If I was good looking, women would want me, and that's the simple fact, right? Um, Women, the thing is, you have to ignore them or they will ignore you. And the parish asks, who was the greatest hero in Canadian history? In the US, for example, ours are George Washington, Donald Trump, and Steve McQueen. I don't know a lot about Canadian history, so I don't fucking know. I really don't know. So moving on. That is it. That is all we've got. I want to refresh the misc just to see what we have going on. Nothing. So I will upload this and peace out and see you guys online.